Hello guys, and welcome back to Strategic Command, World War II World at War with our Allied playthrough. In the last episode, we took care of a lot of business with the UK, managing their fronts and adapting their strategy to our Russian strategy and everything that entails. It's pretty much heating up all over the world now, that's for certain. We have a couple things to look at, but before then I want to mention I figured out about the Hanoi Kunming Railroad finally. So this was supposed to be turned off, actually, a long time ago if we had not taken Bacoy. Because we did take Bacoy, this port was never annexed by the Japanese. And so that is the only easy, scripted way for this railroad that just spawns 60 MPPs out of nowhere for a one-time investment of 40 MPPs to be turned off. That's the only easy way. Now there are other ways that this could have occurred, that this could have turned off. However, I believe with the current situation, I believe the only way to actually permanently turn this off now is if I guess all of Indochina was occupied, but even then I don't know if that would do it. What I do think I figured out, however, is I don't think the Burma Road is ever going to activate so long as the Hanoi Kunming Railroad is active. So I don't know how many MPPs the Burma Road can give the Chinese. I don't know if it's another one-time investment or if it's equivalent to a Lend-Lease convoy. I'm really unsure about that. And I don't think I'm ever going to get to figure it out in this playthrough, because I believe I just happened to do exactly what I needed, accidentally, to protect the Hanoi Kunming Railroad, while also, well, I don't know if this part was even avoidable, getting Indochina in the war. Unfortunately, they were occupied. However, we are liberating them. I believe they would have been attacked no matter what, and I don't think their parent can be changed, regardless of who liberates them. But I also don't know that. I believe that China got them because they liberated them, but it just may happen that Indochina's parent was always China and not France. So I'm trying to learn about the game as we go along. It would certainly make more sense to attach Indochina to China than to France, seeing as France gets wiped out so early, just like they attached French Equatorial Africa to the UK. However, let's get to spending what points we have remaining in our current turn. So, America is 265 after everything they've been sending away. They're up to 59% mobilization. It's only going up from here at this rate. We did finish some researches last turn. I know it included naval weaponry. I know it included ground attack weapons. So, there's suddenly a bunch of upgrades we can do to our bombers and our ships. However, I am nervous to send any ships back to upgrade at all, because it is November 7th. Assuming Pearl Harbor happens in December, I have about, 2 turns until this begins to be here in position. Resultingly, assuming Pearl Harbor is done at a historical time, which I don't see why the Japanese AI would necessarily wait, by the time that starts, our ships would be out of position, because should be late November or early December by the next turn, in which case we'd be back at port. Then the following turn, we'd be upgrading, which means we could not be in place to strike out to defend Pearl Harbor with the time available. So I think I'll forego the naval upgrades for now for the actual naval units. I think they're fine enough to show up and defend Pearl Harbor and all that jazz. Hawaii can provide plenty of room for them to upgrade once the Japanese fleet has left, theoretically. Instead, we should continue on research and maybe look at doing some upgrades as well. So the only thing available to put points into, except for anti-tank weapons, is more ground attack weapons. So we'll go ahead and do that, as it's important to stay ahead of the curve here, because the more advanced America is, the more they could become handy in the long run, if just sending MPPs to the USSR and the UK does not prove to be enough. Which, at this rate, it feels like it will be, but, we still want to be sure. So we also have a tactical bomber unit here that can not only get the ground attack weapons, but they can also get naval weaponry upgrade, which would be good if they were being used to attack enemy ships. Once Pearl Harbor is attacked, we do have the ability I'm going to do this upgrade, by the way, to operate a bunch of planes to Hawaii. We have, I believe, a fair bit of supply around here, judging by all these ports and everything. If we get a bunch of fighters and bombers over here, that could certainly make a big difference in hurting the enemy fleet and defending against the enemy fleet. If it would be a bit excessive and maybe even wasteful with MPPs, but if we're going to be wasteful with MPPs, America's the country to do that with. Doing those upgrades cost me about 45 MPPs. We do also have up here a medium bomber unit that can get the same upgrades for the same cost. So we're going to go ahead and upgrade that. That brings us down to 0 MPPs as America. If we go look at India, I haven't been pumping out units as fast as I was saying that I would. I'm sure you guys have maybe noticed this. I've sent a couple here, the artillery, which I feel was a mistake for Africa, the army, which is finally reaching the front line, and the Gurkha Special Forces, same situation, finally reaching the front line. I haven't been pumping out any more. Just by virtue of having India in the war and sending extra MPPs to the UK has already been helpful enough. But I'm trying to keep them caught up. They are very soon going to get 3 free units, including an HQ, that will be just given to them for free because of the historical them needing to defend the border with Burma and things like that. However, we won't actually need them over there because China has just done so damn well by themselves. So because of that, I'm going to keep investing into research with them because we can afford to. We don't have many things stopping us. Now, where do I put this? Well, we don't have a lot of naval stuff to worry about, so ASW is not something I'm concerned about, even for like ships, if that's relevant at all. I feel like, or planes. I feel like planes would use naval weaponry for that, for which we can research, but we're not going to. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get started researching ground attack weapons, because if India can have a lot of anything other than land units, it is in fact air units with 3 fighters, 2 attack bombers, and 2 medium bombers. So I figured that could be something that would be good to research for the time being. Good to put India's points into and get them closer to their maximum research cap, which they are on the verge of without any researchers finishing anytime soon. But with all that out of the way, we can end our turn and see what these dastardly Axis have to do. Let's see, the people of the Soviet Union fear war with Germany. Well, we're at war. US oil embargo hits Japanese morale. Japanese morale is plummeting, man. Soviet morale is boosted by news of Allied forces in France. Oh, that's convenient. Oh, that reminds me, I learned of another thing. Remember really early in the game, Italy had some event that was like, oh, we're bothered by enemy movements, like Allied movements in the Mediterranean, preparing invasion of Italy or something. Apparently there's a script to detect when Syracuse has about 5 Allied units near it, which, as we know, I built up the entire French Navy around Malta. That is why Italy entered the war when they did and mobilized so quickly. I fucked up. I did not know there was a script for that. There's a script to counter you setting up the historical invasion, or to counter you playing ahistorically and getting the French Navy in position early. We did get some kills. I don't know if it was worth mobilizing them early. This means they get extra MPPs. I'm just learning now that that is a mistake that I made. Now we have a decision. The Special Operations Executive has now been operating since the summer of 1940, but so far it has had little impact. Summer of 1940, damn. So long ago at this point. A report on its activities show that with more funding, SOE would be able to significantly increase the size and scope of its activities. This would enable it to have a much greater impact in supporting and setting up resistance movements throughout occupied Europes. The cost to put SOE on a sounder footing with the facilities to operate in many occupied countries will be 100 MPPs. Wow, that's a lot. At 20 MPPs a turn for 5 turns. Would you like to provide this funding to the SOE so it can live up to its mission to set Europe ablaze? It's strongly recommended to say yes to doing this, as doing so will significantly increase the potential of resistance movements throughout Europe to carry out actions against their occupiers. Through investing in SOE, we may also receive periodic reports from resistance groups on Axis dispositions, which would be useful to the Allied strategy. From January 1944, this investment in the SOE may start to bear more fruit, as provided London is in Allied hands, the USA, USSR are both in the war, and there are significant Allied forces near Paris or eastern Poland. Then the Axis will face disruption and uprisings in other locations. Okay. See section on resistance movements in... Okay, to see more details. I don't think I need to see that. Whether this is worth 100 MPPs or not, based on how well it's going for us, If this can actually bear fruit by letting me see more enemy movements, and maybe making partisan chances more likely or something, I don't actually really know, but I feel like this is worth doing. We're going to go ahead and pay for it. At least it's over a period of time, so it shouldn't be so bad. Now that the USSR has entered the war as America, we could assist her struggle by shipping supplies through the Pacific to Vladivostok in the Far East. These supplies will sail under a Soviet flag, and sending them this way is far safer than through the Atlantic. Given the difficult situation facing the USSR, these goods are worth far more to them than they are to us. Therefore, the cost of sending these supplies is only 40 MPPs, while they will be worth 80 MPPs a turn to the USSR. Would you like to send supplies to the USSR through the Pacific? The USA started shipping supplies to the USSR via Vladivostok from June, it's November, 1941, and it is strongly recommended to say yes to this to boost the Soviet Union's ability to defend itself. Now, I know this could potentially provoke Japan. I know Japan does have events to stop this, but this is amazing, honestly. This is an amazing way to help the USSR, who we can turn into this gigantic war machine. Only 40 a turn. What are we sending from America to the UK? Something like a max of 200, 220, who the fuck knows? A lot. 30% of our total production is America. For a set flat 40 MPPs, which may reduce the amount that we can send to the UK actually, now that I think about it, so long as this is active. Still worth it though, because it's doubling the value of the MPPs from 40 to 80 a turn by moving them and then doubling them. So this is just, I can't say no to this. This is amazing. We have to pick this. Red Army Headquarters. The British have proposed that we join them in invading Persia to overthrow the pro-Axis Shah. Their plan is that we then divide the country between us, with the British having the oil field, at blah blah blah. The invasion would only cost 100 MPPs to be divided equally between both countries. Would you like to approve this British plan to invade Persia and to divide the country between us? A joint invasion will ensure that Persia is swiftly conquered, and the economic benefits will more than outweigh the cost, so it's recommended to say yes in this. It is right about that. It will more than outweigh the cost, and most notably, the Middle East is safe. It is completely safe. Africa is in Allied hands. It has not fallen. India is in any and every position to defend Iran if it comes down to it. The Soviet Union is going to be doing better than ever, and the resources over time could be of great value to the UK and the USSR. And the resources going to the UK means the UK can send even more to the USSR. So, yeah, of course, I already agreed to this as the UK. I will agree to this as the USSR. British and Soviet forces launch Operation Countenance. Persia surrenders. Hell yeah. That's more MPPs and stuff for all of them. Hell yeah. That's really, really good. Thailand swings towards the Axis. Uh-oh. Engineers complete a fortress. That's good. UK starts Arctic supply convoys to the USSR. Hell yeah, and I'm sending 40% of the UK's income this turn over there. Axis raiders disrupt American UK convoys. Okay, that's really not good. Suffolk hit by rough seas. Castleton hit by rough seas. Ooh, took some damage there. We'll have to see how much got intercepted. That's unfortunate that it's the American to the UK, because there's a lot of MPPs traveling that way. We have destroyers out there. So there's a submarine that's kind of slipped past us. But we'll go catch him. We'll go catch him. Tech. Let's see. It was reduced from 93 to 80 this turn. So 13 MPPs lost. That's not a crazy amount. The UK sent, looks like, 95 to the USSR this turn. That's pretty good. Noi Kunming, yep. Countenance, yep. So they did get 95 from the UK this turn. 362 total income as the UK, far less than we have been getting. But America now sending supplies to the USSR will help make up for any losses anywhere else and help the USSR strength overall. I believe the plans, as I've outlined in the previous episodes, will serve us very well, but we're finally now about to see what happens. Okay? Oh, the sub actually chose to attack us. Huh. Now it's going probably somewhere southwest into the North Sea. German panzers are showing up near... This is why I have that anti-tank there. Showing up in Bulgaria. Despite the fact that the war is on with the Russians. ICO's reinforcing. AI is thinking. Oh, I've done so much planning up to this point and done so much work. Playing as allies is difficult, man, because the allies is a game of reaction. You don't have the initiative to decide what happens. I never could have decided that I would take Brest or that I would be able to keep Greece alive. It is entirely up to the Axis player that any of this happens. Right now, we're lucky that it's AI, but who knows if this will actually maintain itself. We'll find out. I didn't see that sub do any convoy raiding, unfortunately. Looks like they're bombing the garrisons on the border of the Soviet Union. They're bombing into Greece still. We still have our interceptors up. They still have escorts up. So we're going to be taking some damage. We're not very efficient here with these guys yet, these British ones. So unfortunately, nothing. Are they trying to bomb the location of the fighters? Defensive AA fighter against enemy Japanese bombers who are surprisingly even bothering right now. Dealing some damage. But the bombers did go again. No damage dealt. They're moving around. Germans are bombing Prismizel. Sure, that's wrong. More defensive AA fire. Didn't even know we could defensive AA fire this much. But that's good that we can. That should reduce the effectiveness of the bombing, although it still dealt some damage. All these planes are going to have to go back to mainland Japan soon. Brest-Litovsk is under attack by German panzers. Again, I expect the death of all these garrisons at the border. I expect it. I am inviting the Germans in. That is the plan. However, we did want certain things up front to delay them at least a little bit so that they don't just march completely unoccupied or I don't know the word. But I believe this will work out pretty well. As they take things, their supply from them will actually not be that great. Now, these are the better defensive we have entrenched. Odessa is currently holding off the enemies a great amount. The Japanese are going on the offensive against our light tanks, and honestly, it's not working out for them. They're losing way more than they're killing in terms of total value. Going on the offensive here is already seemingly a terrible idea for them. They are still, the Axis, attacking this one corps on the Metaxas line. It's obvious why. The corps is single-handedly holding all of them off. It's so very impressive. They're even going on the offensive near Mukden. The Japanese are getting very aggressive right now. Currently, November 21st. It'll probably be into December next turn for sure. I hope my decision with the American Navy was a good one. The Soviets, the Axis are marching forward into Soviet territory, encountering difficulties at the places where I intended them to so far. Way more than I intended them to, so that's actually really, really nice. But these defenses can only hold for so long. Unfortunately. Whew. Alright. So far, the turn's not going that bad. It's going better than I expected it to, especially on the Soviet front. And with the Soviet winter so close, you know? Everything's working out pretty well. Oh, here we go. Nice. Allied raiders disrupt Sweden-German convoys. So it did work. Hopefully, we're paying them back for their raiding on our convoys. And we pay them back by going after their submarines in general. So only 2 garrisons destroyed at the start here. A lot of cities lost. That can't be helped. An Italian battleship in the Mediterranean has been spotted. Enemy Italian army. German fighters. Okay. And look at all this Soviet stuff. Shock heavy tanks, 43rd Army, 4th paratroopers coming in. This is all going to be really, really helpful. National morale as the Soviets right now is 103%. Japanese are down to 51%. So for some reason, my UK Arctic convoys to the USSR went back to 20%. So that's why only like 95 was sent, because it wasn't at 40. I'm guessing the reason it did that is because this was technically the first turn that we sent anything, so the convoy was still activating. So we only sent 20%. There was no getting it ahead of time. However, from here on out, instead of like 100 reaching there, we can expect more like 200 to reach there, and that's with 100%. The reason it was a little bit lower, of course, is because the convoys from America did get intercepted, unfortunately. So that's not the best situation. We can expect Riga and this other place here to come under assault soon, as well as Minsk. I expect these garrisons to be blasted through, but the line behind is going to be very well defended. Also, Minsk, the army there, can hopefully hold the line with 3 entrenchment. The winter's here, by the way. As you can see, the snow is already here. December 5th. That means, theoretically, on the Axis' turn, this snow will still be here, and is already going to slow their advance. I don't know if this will count for the Russian winter effects that are going to hurt their supply or whatever. I don't really know how it works. However, I do know that it's going to greatly slow their advance already, which is good. The slower they advance up to the front line, the longer our defenses will hold. Odessa's already lost almost all of its entrenchment, which is why I know it's not going to hold. But the longer everything here does hold, the more time we have to get everything in the rear up to the front line. It appears to me that the US to Vladivostok convoy is not an actual convoy route. So yes, the amount cannot be modified, but it also cannot be intercepted. And if I recall correctly, from what I know of the Japanese event, they would have to secure parts of California or Hawaii or Vladivostok itself in order to actually stop the shipments. I don't know if these shipments are indefinite otherwise, but if they are, that's amazing. I know that the game did say something about being able to send American supplies through the Middle East to the USSR. I wonder if that's a backup or like an additional way to assist the USSR. I feel like that would just be a backup. Like, I don't think it would mix with the Vladivostok convoys. I'm taking a look at national morale. The UK's has gone down to 92% from about 93, so it's still not recovering yet. It's probably due to the fall of Yugoslavia or something. America's still not in the war. Soviets has gone up after their entrance, probably due to the presence we have in France. Oh my god. What was America at last turn? 59%? They're at 67 now. That's crazy. That's awesome. Their MPP gain's going up dramatically already. As you can see, we were at 0. We're at 357, even despite everything we're sending abroad. That's nice. China's still at 121. India's still at 100. Germany is at 107. They've been higher, but they've been lower as well. 110 is what you need to get the first buff from 100% unit morale to 110% unit morale. Italy has dropped down to 77%, constantly faltering so far. And I wonder where's their invasion of Greece? Can we see it? It might be back here. Oh yeah, October. You can see they get a little national morale bonus from invading Greece, but it all just went downhill as they're losing stuff in Africa. And Japan's is down to 51%. So I don't believe anything affected Japanese morale between this turn and the last, except for the US oil embargoes, which we can see taking effect here. So the oil embargo itself on national morale seems to be pretty minor. It seems to only maybe equate to 1% of Japanese national morale every turn. And while that is decent, I was curious how viable it would be for the Japanese to just not attack America. Now, one problem about that is they're going to miss the DEI oil, which is a lot of their money. But money aside, looking only at morale, it looks like the Japanese could have an excuse to put off attacking America as long as possible if their morale is otherwise doing well. Now, this Japan's down to 51%. They have the lowest morale of any living country right now. Their morale is so low, in fact, that they're only 11% away from having the worst debuff, like a 25% debuff to unit morale for everything. And hopefully we can get that going. We can see that that one Russian sub by itself took almost or about 10 MPPs from the German convoy going from Sweden into Germany. Not quite the 13 or whatever they took from America to the UK, but definitely helps get them back. And then Japan's convoy gain has ceased. So they gained 3,000 MPPs from convoy since the start of the game, and right now they're gaining none. That's pretty massive. Looking at India first, they did not finish any research or anything, but they are sitting on 164 MPPs, which is enough to do at least some kind of research. There's about one more that we could fit in. We could either wait to fit in a 175 MPP research, or we could go just try to fit in one that's costs less. And given the direction that the Indians will be going sooner rather than later, they'll be getting an HQ, getting more land units, but I'll have to go out of my way to purchase the air units. I'll prioritize getting the command and control upgrade to max. That's a passive upgrade that will improve the HQs, their command range, their command rating, and their AP, their action points. So I'll go ahead and research that. That brings us to 1450, meaning we can no longer invest in any research at all with India until something finishes, which looks like production technology is advancing pretty well towards finishing. I just noticed under all the belligerences, it doesn't say Italy and miners anymore. It says just Italy, because they don't have any more miners. One thing I kind of realized that I didn't really process is Libya is not a minor. It's just considered Italy. And it looks like Ethiopia it's occupied. So Ethiopia can be liberated. It'll probably join the UK once we actually liberate it. And then Libya is actually just, quote unquote, to borrow terms from SRU, loyal Italian land. And so we are the bad guys. We are the occupiers, and thus do not benefit as much from it, nor can we liberate it. With America, we have finished industrial technology. So I'm going to go ahead and research level 4 of that, because the more MPPs America is making, just the more OP it and everyone down the convoy line from it will be. That's another 175 MPPs invested back into research. We have 182 remaining. It's only one singular research we're not progressing in. That's for anti-tank. We don't have a lot of anti-tank we can even recruit, and I don't even know if anything else can benefit from it. However, given the current state of things and the way of things, I will just go ahead and invest in it because it may come useful, and it's only 100 MPPs. That leaves us with 82 MPPs that we can do with as we wish, whether that's building new units, upgrading units, whatever. And coming near Pearl Harbor, this is going to be the perfect time to start building up a massive navy soon, because that's what we need America for, and that's what we're going to leave ourselves the capability to do. Rather than do it super early, we'll have all the research in place to make sure everything can just come out rather elite and make a massive naval counterattack against a weakened Japan. Given what time it is in terms of date and the situation in the Pacific, we have 40 MPPs that we can use as France that can pretty much just go into its one partisan unit that it currently has, or these Polynesian garrisons. The Papeete garrison is the one that spawned, I guess it's historically, and the first one is the one we recruited. We don't need both of them over here in Polynesia. Polynesia is relatively safe, all things considered. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually transport the first garrison, take 15 of France's MPPs, and the idea is we're gonna cruise it. I'm gonna get it all the way up here, ideally. Hopefully it doesn't get intercepted on the way. Okay, cool. And so it can land at this town of Nauru, or whatever the fuck here. Nauru. And it can defend this, which is an interesting location. There's a mine here that generates 10 MPPs every turn to the UK for free, and then a town here that provides supply. Honestly, getting more garrisons here could potentially even be good. Also, honestly, this mine is worth a lot more than the settlement itself, so we're actually going to put the garrison on the mine, since the mine is so important. Then we will take the Papeete garrison and move it over to Papeete, which we're just going to leave here so that French Polynesia has something defending it. Otherwise, you know, there goes the Free French, I guess. Unless they gotta, I don't know. I don't really know how that would work. If you lose your capital when you don't exist, but you have partisans. Yeah, I'm really not sure. I'm really hoping that we'll get some Yugoslav partisans. I looked and saw Yugoslavia actually has some of the densest amount of partisans in just the whole game. China definitely has more, because China has a bunch of locations that can hurt enemy supply and MPPs, but also a lot of places that spawn partisan units, which is pretty notable. Hell, even Manchuria has stuff like that. But also, this wasn't visible until right now. The Russians have so many locations that can spawn partisan units. It's insane. I think they have more than China. Certainly more that can summon actual units. Now, these weren't here before, so I don't know if this is part of the SOE or whatever of the Brits funding this, or if this is just natural. I guess if you're someone that knows about this game, feel free to let me know in the comments, because I'd love to know if I did this, or if this is just natural and it just wasn't showing because these guys were not in the war. I don't think the Yugoslav stuff was showing until they were in the war. Certainly nothing else that's not some way involved in the war is showing. So there's probably even more we can't see. But getting Yugoslav partisans would be so helpful to the Greek front that hopefully, maybe, we get it. Certainly if we can distract them enough on enough fronts, they won't be able to garrison everything. At least that's my hope. Now, there's our planning, there's our end turn, there's our easier countries to take care of. Next time, we are going to go ahead and take care of all the big boys. You know, China, the UK, USSR. We'll have so much stuff to do. And I have some stuff to talk about my terrible diplomacy game up to this point, as well as I've been learning about the diplomacy system. But that's going to be it for now. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode.